You've heard it before, probably on a nature documentary or from a friend who loves trivia. A murder of crows, a parliament of owls, an exaltation of larks. These names feel ancient, poetic, and somehow official. Like a serious biologist in a dusty old library stamped them into the definitive rulebook of the animal kingdom. But what if I told you they're not science at all? What if these spooky, dramatic names for groups of animals are the result of a 500-year-old inside joke? A secret language designed by medieval aristocrats, not to understand nature, but to show off at parties. Get ready, because the real story behind these words is way stranger and funnier than you think. To find the source, we have to go back to late medieval England, around the 1400s. And you have to forget the laboratory. The real action wasn't happening in a library, it was happening in the forest. For the English gentry, hunting, or venery as they called it, was everything. It wasn't just a sport, it was the original social network. It was where you made deals, sized up your rivals, and proved you belonged. And like any exclusive club, it had its own slang, its own private language. Knowing the right words was your ticket in. You didn't just see a bunch of birds. You had to know it was a covey of partridge. You didn't see some deer. It was a bevy of roe. These weren't just descriptions. They were passwords. Get them right, you were one of the cool kids. Get them wrong, and you were just a clueless outsider. This secret language was passed around by word of mouth and in handwritten notes for decades. But then, in 1486, something happened that would lock it into history. A book was published. The Book of St Albans. It was the ultimate lifestyle guide for the aspiring gentleman, covering the essential topics of hawking, hunting, and heraldry. It was an instant bestseller. The book is traditionally attributed to a woman named Juliana Berners, said to be the prioress of a nearby convent, though scholars still debate who exactly wrote it. What made the book such a status symbol wasn't just the information. It was a piece of cutting-edge technology. In the sections on heraldry, it used two-color printing, laying red and black ink on the same page. In an age of monochrome text, this was like the first iPhone. It was dazzling, expensive, and the perfect thing to leave out on your table to impress guests. And tucked inside this must-have guide was a long, long list of group names, or nouns of assembly. And this is where this game is revealed. The list wasn't just a dry catalog of hunting terms. It was a bizarre mix of genuine jargon, clever puns, and outright insults. It was a medieval meme page. Sure, it had the now famous ones like a pride of lions and a gaggle of geese, but it also had wonderfully weird ones, like a shrewdness of apes or the beautiful a murmuration of starlings. But here's the best part. The list didn't stop with animals. It turned its sharp, witty eye on people. The authors included entries like a superfluity of nuns, which is a brilliant little jab at monasteries. They listed a fighting of beggars, a draft of butlers, and my personal favorite, an impatience of wives. Suddenly, the tone becomes clear. This wasn't natural history. This was a roast. Over the centuries, we've forgotten the human insults, so we mistakenly read the animal ones as serious science, when they were all part of the same playful, satirical word game. The Book of St Albans gave the game a foothold, but it was a printer in London who made it go viral. His name was Wynkyn de Worde, and in 1496, he published a new, expanded edition of the book. Think of him as the guy who took a niche blog and turned it into a global media brand. De Worde added even more terms to the list. Some counts put the total number across these early versions at over 160. That's not a field guide, that's a full-blown party game. His widely circulated edition helped cement these phrases in the minds of the English-speaking upper crust. The printing press acted as a megaphone, blasting this aristocratic slang far beyond the hunting lodge and making it a permanent, if quirky, part of the language. After that, the terms of venery mostly went to sleep. They became a historical curiosity, something you'd only find in dusty old books. Most people had never heard of them. Then in 1968, they got a second life from a very unexpected source. A man named James Lipton. Yet that James Lipton, the future host of Inside the Actor's Studio. Years before he was asking celebrities about their favorite curse word, Lipton was a word nerd. He fell in love with these old collective nouns and published a book called An Exaltation of Larks. It collected the medieval terms, celebrated their poetry, and even added some witty modern coinages. The book was a sensation. It landed at the perfect time when a new generation was fascinated by folklore, arcane knowledge, and rediscovering the past. Lipton's book single-handedly rescued these terms from obscurity and launched them back into popular culture. And that's why you know them today. If you look at the data, the use of a phrase like a murder of crows barely registers in books before the 1900s. After Lipton's book, it skyrockets. It jumped from the page onto coffee mugs, posters, and into trivia nights. We love them because they feel true. When you see a swirling, hypnotic cloud of thousands of starlings at dusk, the word murmuration just fits. Our modern, romantic view of nature makes us want these to be terms of ancient wisdom, born from careful observation. But we're just backfilling the poetry. In reality, an actual ornithologist studying crows will simply call them a flock. They don't use murder in their research papers. And the game continues today, with modern inventions like a flamboyance of flamingos or an intrusion of cockroaches seamlessly blending in, because they capture that same witty, poetic spirit of the originals. So the next time you're at a dinner party and someone confidently drops a parliament of owls into the conversation, you can smile. You know the secret. That parliament wasn't called to order by ancient druids or meticulous scientists. It was called to order 500 years ago by some bored, witty aristocrats who needed a clever way to figure out who belonged in their club. The words aren't biology, they're a status symbol. They're a fabulous, poetic, medieval inside joke that we're all finally in on. Thanks for checking this out. If uncovering the hidden origins of the things around you is your kind of fun, do all the good things, like subscribe and hit the bell. We've got so many more stories to tell, from why keyboards aren't in alphabetical order to the real reason we clink glasses for a toast. See you next time.